Or do you want to do the?
Sure. Hey, welcome to the Tavern, the Taeguk Warriors. I'm Roy Gim, aka the Old Tavern owner, and you know of us through the Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors blog on taegukwarriors.com. So welcome from wherever in the world you are. We got people all over. Obviously, a lot from the U.S., some from England and Europe, other parts of Europe, Asia, of course, Korea, and Australia. Everybody representing the Korean diaspora, all talking about and conversing about and really loving, of course, Korean football. So let's get started. A lot of things going on in the post-World Cup era. Now the new season of the European campaign and middle of the K-League Classic, as well as the resumption of the Asian Champions League. A lot to unpack and discuss. First, let's go to Jay Chi in Tavern Studio Busan. Let's check in with you. How you doing, buddy?
All right. Just woke up. Has some technical issues, but I was a little panicky for a minute. But I think we're good now, and I feel a little awake, so I'm fine.
Nice. Make sure you get your cup of coffee. And do
Yeah.
you drink do you drink it like Korean style, quickly? Is it with the that instant coffee powder thing?
Yeah, we don't have like a regular drip coffee thing, so yeah, we do the instant mix cheap powder. It's very sweet.
Excellent. Let's check in also with Tavern Studio LA real quick. We got Jeremy Peck. How are you doing out there?
Good. Just getting ready for school. It's in a couple of weeks. So
Yeah. Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
it's gonna be fun.
Excellent. It sounds like an adventure coming up. Let's check in with Tavern Studio Connecticut or Ohio.
Ohio. It's Ohio. Yeah.
Ohio. All right. How are you, Jinsuk?
Yeah, I'm good. It's the same boat as Jeremy, getting ready for school in 3 days.
Oh, 3 days. It's coming right up. All right.
Yeah.
Good. A busy time. All right. And finally, let's check in with somebody who's already started school, this time in Tavern Studio, Quebec, Canada. Let's go with Tim Lee. How are you doing?
I haven't started school.
You haven't started school?
I'm still in summer. It's still summer break, but
Ah.
I started school in a week. Yes.
Okay, very good. Then you still have time to procrastinate and everything. All right, good. All right, let's get started. And once again, welcome from wherever in the world you are. Welcome to the Google Tavern Studio Hangout for the Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors. Jay, take it from here.
All right. So again, I'll be doing the slight moderating zone for us, and we're gonna start with was probably the biggest news this past couple weeks, and that was the Korean national team and their search for the next head coach. KFA announced earlier this week that their negotiations with Bert Van Marwijk, I might not be pronouncing that correctly, but their negotiations fell through based mainly on tax issues and where he would spend most of his time. And so the coaching considerations go on. And so our first topic does focus on that. And so with Bert Van Marwijk coming to the national team, KFA basically said they're going to go out and talk to a few more, but it seems like Lee Young-soo kind of hinted that their next in-line candidates were unavailable now. And so they talked about dropping the requirements for who can be manager. And so, just very quickly, because I know this is going to be a very long topic, but who do you think, if you have one, a preference, who should the KFA consider next or the next national team boss? And, go ahead, Roy.
To interject real quick, Lee Young-soo was hired not too long ago as the technical director. And as Jay, you were mentioning in the tavern, what that means, that title means is they're the person in charge of finding the next KNT coach. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, technically, yeah, the technical committee is responsible for the hiring and firing of the national team boss, along with some other stuff. And so, yeah, Lee Young-soo as the head has, of course, a big say in who is the next manager.
Am I wrong to say that, and I thought I saw this in one of your tweets, that it seemed to indicate that he was a technical director in the lead up to the 2002 World Cup, and so he was one of the people responsible for bringing Gus Hundik, who did, as everybody knows, a fantastic job with the Taeguk Warriors in 2002. Am I incorrect to say that?
No, Lee Young-soo was the head of the technical committee from 2000 to 2002, I believe. Yeah. So he was the one who appointed Hiddink and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also interesting to note that Hiddink was actually second choice, and I think his first was Aimé Jacquet from the 1998 France World Cup winner, and his third choice was one of our next managers from like 2006 or something.
So I guess then to fast forward, thank you for that as well. Yeah, that is interesting. We could have had an entirely different coach instead of Gus. And as we know, that Gus is now practically a national treasure at this point, a living national treasure. Let's fast forward now to Lee Young-soo. Obviously, you can tell his bent is towards foreign coaches, one, and towards Dutch coaches. He didn't get Bert. Are there? I mean, I guess then that begs the question: would there be any other good Dutch coaches who are still available? And if not Dutch, obviously, it looks like from a polling done, most Koreans would rather opt for a foreign manager at this point in time.
All right. And yeah, all right. So let's just do very quickly, kind of a broad picture of what's happening. Lee Young-soo, from his press conference this week, does certainly seem like his plan is for the long term, through the next World Cup, the manager will be a foreign manager. He doesn't seem to give any indication that he's looking at a Korean manager at this point. And so, I guess again, back kind of the original question was, is there a manager that you know that's out there and available that you think would be a good choice for the next NT boss? And so I guess we kind of heard a little bit from Roy, so we'll jump over. Jinsup, do you have one? I know in some of your new Twitter account, Jinsup is on Twitter by the way now, so you should follow him. And so, but on your Twitter account, you mentioned Radomir Antic, the Serbian manager.
Yes.
So do you think he would be a good coach for the next one?
I don't know. I actually mentioned it mainly because Antic and Proshineski were the ones that were touted at the before Van Marwijk, or whatever how you pronounce it, came into the picture. I do believe the Jorge Luis Pinto and Luciano Spalletti, I think, the Roma coach. Neil Lennon, I guess.
Oh yeah.
That bad.
Is Neil Lennon? I thought he still was Celtic though.
No, I think he was. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, those three I guess are still out there. And then as I mentioned before, Radomir Antic, just because of his experience, might be good. And I haven't watched football long enough to know the ins and outs of this.
Yeah.
All right. And Radomir Antic, if you didn't know, is a Serbian manager. He has coached some big clubs. He's coached, I think, Madrid and Barcelona.
Barcelona and Atletico.
I think also close to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So he has some big names. He was the Serbia boss at the 2010 World Cup, I believe. No, that was a different one. Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, he has some big club experience, and he also got a nice endorsement from the former FC Seoul striker Dejan Damjanovic, who played in the K-League for quite a while. On Twitter, Damjanovic said that Antic would be a perfect fit for the NT. So that was, for me, a pretty ringing endorsement, considering Damjanovic's knowledge of the domestic league and Korean players.
And I think he's the only manager that's coached Barcelona and Madrid.
No, he's the only one. He's the only one who's coached all three of Barcelona, Real, and Atletico. There are a lot of Barcelona Real guys.
But that's a trifecta. That's very unusual.
All right. Jeremy, do you have any thoughts on the next boss? Any names that kind of stand out to you?
I'm not sure. Antic, he seems like a person that would be good. I mean, someone that's well versed in Korean football. obviously, and someone that wants the job. Bert van Mark, seems like he wanted to stay in the Netherlands, and he didn't really want
he wanted
the
to.
job. So it would have to be someone that would actually want the job and is well versed in current football. And Antic seems like that kind of guy, and plus he not a lot of he's not as expensive as maybe Marek. Maybe paying less money, so that's a plus too.
Yeah, and what Jeremy was mentioning, Bert van Marwijk wanted to spend most of the time in Europe, near his family in the Netherlands. His reasoning was that he could monitor the Europe-based players more, and then the KFA was worried that kind of what Jeremy hinted at, that people here would say him as, maybe a little bit lazy, not wanting to be around Korea and Korean football, and they worried the K-League players might see it.
That's what happened with that's what happened with Hiddink in Turkey. He was the coach of Turkey, and he didn't base himself in Turkey. He based himself in some other country. A lot of Turkish fans were upset by that fact. So it would definitely have to be someone that's interested in taking this team forward.
All right. And Tim, any thoughts on the next boss?
Well, I guess like Junsuk said at the end, I'm not I don't know all the managers very well here, the candidates, but Ančić sounds like a good way to go. He's coached some big clubs, so I think if they've got experience and they know how to get results, then I think that definitely would be the best option moving forward. And especially a manager who wants to stay a long time, to build the KNC and not just kind of manage for a year and then move along, and then someone else comes in to replace him, and you have to do the cycle leading up to this World Cup all over again, but with foreign coaches.
All right, fair enough. And Roy, I don't think we heard from you. Do you?
I'll throw out a few long shots, and I'll admit that I don't know how plausible these candidates are, but they're high-profile European names. These are people who don't have any attachments at the moment, and if the money's right, maybe. Who knows? You never know. So let me throw these out. The ex-Chelsea manager, Roberto Di Matteo. He doesn't have a club right now, and I thought he did a really good job with Chelsea as a caretaker for a while, and won the Champions League. We've also got a manager who dealt with a Korean KPA, Korean player abroad, Kim Bo-kyung's former manager, Malky Mackay.
He has a club.
Turned down the job. He turned down the Crystal Palace job.
Yeah.
Did I thought they hired him?
No, he turned it down this morning, I think.
Yeah, it fell through.
Oh.
Just fell through.
I just woke up. So.
Yeah, you have that excuse, exactly. So, Malky Mackay, I actually met him, and not only is he, salt of the earth, but, he's familiar in some fashion with Korean football, enough that he scouted the Hongmong team when they were at the Olympics, and they were right there in Cardiff. So, he did have a pretty good hand in acquiring Kim Bo-kyung. So I think, if he's up for the challenge of moving abroad and really immersing himself in Korean culture and Korean football, that's a plausible candidate. I'll throw one more that I don't know about even myself. This is a name that's been bandied about by some on the forums. This is Bob Rodley, former U.S. manager and ex-Egypt manager.
No.
I know. It's a turnoff for a lot of people. He is a turnoff for a lot of people. But on paper, if you look at some of the more positive qualities, this is a guy that did immerse himself in Egypt and tried to do a big turnaround and garnered a lot of respect in Egypt, even though they didn't qualify for the World Cup. And to probably more likely the Egyptian uprisings had, and the turmoil around it probably had more to do with why Egypt didn't qualify. But even myself, I don't know that would be a good fit. So I'd be more inclined for either Malky Mackay or Roberto Di Matteo.
I've also heard Jorge Luis Pinto's name thrown around. He's the Costa Rican manager who led them.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say actually. So at the very beginning, I mentioned. Yeah, Pinto and Spalletti are the two guys I mentioned before. I think if we can get Pinto, that'll definitely be very good. He knows how to make the most out of less talent on paper.
Yeah. But I also think Costa Rica got a lot of help out of Keylor Navas, their goalie. So not too sure that. I don't know.
Jumps.
Yeah. When I think goalie, his name pops in my head and it drives me crazy. Whatever.
Yeah,
There's
well,
also Mancini, who doesn't have a job right now, but probably is too expensive.
Mancini got fired from Galatasaray?
Yeah, he left. He left Gala.
Prandelli went to Galatasaray. He's the new coach. Mancini's without a job. But I don't know how well versed he is in Korean football.
Mancini probably not at all.
Not at all.
He's still a good coach. He's a good coach though.
Yeah.
Jay, one day your dream of an Italian manager will come to fruition at some point. You know. How about Lippi? If Lippi is pissed off enough at Guangzhou, maybe
If Lippi leaves, he's going to China. He's going to take the Chinese job.
The Chinese job.
Anyway.
There's also
Wait, go ahead, Jeremy. Let's call.
There's also Hoyan Cruyff, who doesn't have a job. He's Dutch, but he probably won't accept the offer.
Is he looking though?
I'm just putting it out. I don't know if he's looking, but
I don't think he's looking.
Possibility.
Oh. That could be quite the coup if they can somehow convince him.
It would be kind of cool if the case hired him.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap up the coaching thing. Obviously, with the way things are going, there are a lot of potential managers who could come in, and so I think we'll just have to wait and watch and see what the KFA does. But for now, there are 2 games coming up in just a few weeks. Beginning of September 5th, I believe, is the first game against Venezuela. If you're in Korea, that one's in Bucheon, so you can go to that one. And then the second game, September 8th on Chuseok, strangely enough, is the game against Uruguay in Goyang, and I am actually going to go to that game. So hopefully I can bring some video and pictures and stuff from that one.
It sounds like you're going to ditch the in-laws to do that.
I am ditching the in-laws. I'll see them in the morning and then taking the 12 o'clock train up to Seoul. And then
is it the one against Uruguay?
Yeah. And if you want to go to that game, there are still tickets. They're pretty cheap. They're like 20,000, 30,000 won, depending on where you sit at Goyang. No Suarez. He had his ban upheld internationally.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully we can still see some decent players, Cavani or Forlan or Godin.
Well, that means none of our players will get bitten, so...
Good.
Right, but for those 2 games, the KFA announced they were going to do a coaching by committee thing, and the man who will lead this committee is former Sungnam manager Shin Tae-young, and he will be assisted by Park Geun-ha and Kim Bong-soo, who are both part of the current staff.
So they went to the World Cup.
Kim Bong-soo is the man who is single-handedly responsible for encouraging Hong Myung-go to field Chung Sung-ryung the whole time. He's the goalkeeper coach, right? And he was talking about, oh, don't shatter our Chung Sung-ryung's confidence, blah blah blah. And, yeah. Anyway, I don't like that guy, but whatever.
Yeah. Kim Bong-soo, and was it Park Geun-ha are both? Yes, they are both current coaching staff members from the previous Hongwon-bo team. Shin Tae-young, though, I heard he wasn't great as a Sungnam manager. He was, I think, manager like 2008, 2012, or something like that. He did lead them to the AFC Champions League title, but I think Sungnam was in the league pretty poor during that period, and they had only gotten into the AFC CL because of the Korean FA Cup. Anyway, so we'll see how they do. But I'm wondering, from these two friendlies, A, do you think this coaching by committee thing can work? And B, should we actually take anything from these two games, knowing that these three are probably not going to be there long term? So, start, Roy. What do you think? Do you think this kind of like all these three coaches? Because Lee Young-soo was very specific in his press conference. He said Shin Tae-young is not going to be an interim manager. He is not a candidate for the actual full job. He's just going to be there for these matches while we continue to search. So do you think, knowing that, can it work against decent teams in Venezuela and Uruguay? And as fans, watchers, should we actually take anything from the performances in these next games, knowing that these coaches will probably not be there come Asian Cup and World Cup cycle?
I think it's obviously a very interesting arrangement. You know, I'm going to say, yeah, it's possible that we can actually get some decent results, only because I don't know that the managers are going to feel, because they know they're not. It's different than the Choi Kang-hee. It's just that they know they're in it for a very, very short time. I don't think they're under any undue pressure to get results. So because of that, that actually may be a positive blowback from this. That the players are then able to sort of lead with the wisdom of the crowd, so to speak. You get the veteran leaders who are going to come onto the squad on the pitch, and they're going to be like, all right, we know how to play football. And then in essence, I am going to wonder out loud if they're going to allow the players to be able to figure out and lead. And that might produce some interesting results. And I think there's some, Lee Chung-young amongst others, Ki Sung-young out there. I think they have the potential to then lead this crew.
All right.
But I think then, last but not least, you mentioned something that was interesting. Should we take anything from this? Because of the unusual situation around that. And I think let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. I mean, it's too difficult to say at this point how much we can get from this. I am just going to be curious to see how the players are going to be able to conduct themselves and possibly even organize themselves. That's sort of, the visual checkpoints that I'm looking for.
All right.
I guess we can glean like form, but like nothing as into like our long-term like identity and playing style.
I agree with that.
Are these games in preparation for the Asian games? Or?
Probably more the Asian Cup, maybe.
Asian Cup.
The Asian Cup?
Sort of. They're just friendlies, really.
Yeah. So they're not all under the...
No, national team friendlies. National team. Can-T friendlies.
Yeah, these friendlies, they're full national team friendlies. They are, I mean, in theory, yes, practice for the build-up to the Asian Cup because they're friendlies. I think the ones after that, starting in October, are more targeted. I think there's a game against Iran and some others that they're still working on. But also, in case you missed it, I put it on Twitter. I haven't posted on the Tavern yet because it's only partial. It was interesting because the KFA did announce the 14 of the players that were getting called. They announced the 14 over these players that they were calling already.
Yeah.
And I thought, that was interesting because the KFA announced it and not, which made it seem more like it was their decision and not maybe, I don't know if they talked to Shin Tae-young and the coaches about who they wanted. or if they just decided on their own. But the 14 overseas players that are being called up for this one are Son Heung-min, Gu Jia-chul, Lee Chung-young, Ki Sung-young, Im Young-ju, Kwak Tae-hee, Han Kook-young, Cho Young-chul, Nam Tae-hee, Kim Young-kwan, Kwak Jung-woo, Kim Chang-soo, Kim Min-woo, and Kim Jin-hyun are the 14 overseas ones. The rest of the players will be K-League, announced on Monday. They said they would watch the games this weekend and then decide there.
Oh, goodness.
So there are, of course, some noticeable absences. Hong Jung-ho, Ji Dong-won, Kim Bo-kyung are all out, but I think they're all carrying injuries, which explains their absences.
Yeah.
Park Joo-young, probably not as surprising. He's not in, given he has no club.
And yet, you said on Twitter, didn't you? I'm curious because you said on Twitter, Jay, that you thought that Park Joo-young should have been included in the squad.
No,
can I get a little more on your thoughts on that?
No, it was probably a little. I wrote it on the tweet. I said surprise missouts, and I included Park Joo-young. But then I said less surprising, and I said he probably should be on that list. And because I mean, I'm not surprised Park Joo-young isn't called because given the World Cup performance and that he's clubless, it seems highly risky and controversial that they brought him back in. Given, but other ones I thought maybe slightly surprising or less surprising. Park Joo-ho and Yoon Suk-young, probably not too surprising. Park Joo-ho seems like he's getting ready for the Asian Games soon. Yoon Suk-young
isn't playing.
Yeah, he's not featuring for QPR, and he probably won't. Kim Jin-soo not included, but probably another Asian Games kind of thing that they're not looking at him for right now. And maybe slightly surprising was Ha Dae-sung maybe not getting a call, while Park Jung-woo did. And so, let's see.
You also mentioned something interesting about the goalkeeper position.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was interesting that Kim Jin-hyun from Serizao got in, and usually they only take 3, which means that one of the 3 World Cup keepers will be dropped, likely. And that would either be Jung Sung-ryung or Lee Bum-young, and I'm not sure who that would be.
Jung, please, Jung.
Yeah, my guess is, my suspicion is it'll be Jung, but I don't know, because if you drop him out, it's 3 very young keepers, and so the only reason I can see Jung considering was to be like a veteran amongst the 3 as like a backup. But I don't know, because Lee Bum-young, while I like him, and it seems like amongst us we like him as his potential, he doesn't really seem to be favored by the coaching staff at the KFA and so on. But anyway, any thoughts about the 14 overseas players that have been called up? Anyone surprised Kim Chang-soo or Cho Young-chul have been called?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There aren't too many random J League guys that I don't know if they deserve to be on.
That makes sense. But I think most of the call-ups, there's like most of the call-ups and the miss-outs, there's a reason for them. But I think the Japanese players, a couple of them, it's a bit of a question mark. But I don't know. I guess they're getting a chance, and hopefully they do a good job. If they don't, then they don't get selected for the next friendlies then. So.
And this is kind of a little off topic, but I also wanted to mention, since Cho Young-chul, Lee Myung-ju, and Han Kook-young have all been mentioned, those are all 3 players that have moved to the Middle East, to Qatar more specifically.
Yeah.
Is there any concern that, not so much Cho Young-chul, but Lee Myung-ju, Han Kook-young especially, that they, at a relatively young age, they're gone to the Middle East to play their club football? Is that a concern to any of you about their long-term development?
Concern. Yeah, of
It
course.
is,
Yeah. That's not good at all.
It's not the best destination for them. They're probably only going there because of the money. Because they offer, I'm assuming they offer lots of money there because.
Yeah, that's the only reason why you go to the Middle East.
Exactly. Because otherwise, why would you go there? Why not just stay in Korea? So I don't know. It's not the best breeding ground for.
No, it just played out bad. No, it's the worst thing you can do at a young age.
Okay.
I think.
I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's a good career move either. So.
But yeah, I mean, here's something. I think this is instrumental when you look at other countries, other examples of high-profile players that had potential and went to the Middle East, and I think somewhat their skills have become diminished. And that would be Gian from Ghana. That guy I thought was a world-class player, raw potential. Not the perfect striker, but he was a very dangerous striker a couple of years ago. He could have stuck it out at Sunderland, and he decided to go to the Middle East instead. And he's not the same. I mean, I think a lot of people will clearly say objectively he's not the same. And Asamoah Gyan could have been a bigger name had he gone through the rigors of European Challenge. And I think that's could befall the fate of people like Hankook Young. On the opposite end of the spectrum, real quick, Ikuno, I think, is supposed to go to a Middle Eastern club when his military service is over. And therein, then I have a twinge of regret because it's like therein you had somebody who potentially was sought after by Blackburn and other clubs when they were of top flight, and I without opening yet another Pandora's box about compulsive military conscription, it's I'll just leave it at that. Is the regret of potential that's lost.
Isn't that what happened to Namte? He got an offer from Dortmund, and then now he's at some Middle Eastern club.
Isn't that you? Well, I don't know.
Roy, I'd like to actually throw that to you. What Jeremy brought up is Namtehi, because Namtehi was in France playing.
That's right.
Maybe with smaller French teams, but he left France to go, and he ended up Middle East at Laquia, or whatever, however you pronounce it. Mm-hmm. So, do you kind of see Namtehi in a similar kind of situation, maybe as Asamoah Gyan, as a youngster who left Europe to maybe pursue the money in the Middle East? I know he's not on as big wages as Gyan is, but kind of a similar situation. Raw potential that maybe might not ever fully reach it because of his club choice.
Yeah, I think so. I would dare say so. I mean, when I saw him, the last time I really saw him live play was in the 2012 Olympics. He was the guy that provided the first cross, a really good cross to Park Chu-young to score the first goal against Switzerland. And he's since then he's had a slow start when he went to the Middle East, and last year he had a pretty standout year, scoring a number of goals for his Middle Eastern club. But how much of a help was he to the KNT when it came down to the World Cup? Could that have been different had he stuck it out in Europe?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't exactly know, but I wonder if that really was the case. I suspect that it was so.
Okay. All right. And so I think we should probably try to wrap up this segment. It's going a little long as always, but I'll just leave it with the theoretical theoretical question. It's something. But it's kind of the thing that always kind of gets discussed, or I always bring it up when we talk about players going to Europe is it better for a player to go to Europe where there are superior facilities and maybe coaching staff and players and then just be a bench player or a reserve player than it is to play in a lower quality league like the K-League or the Middle East, but you're playing every game?
Always the playing. Always playing. No, not even a question. Always playing.
All right, so let's move on very quickly to the next topic. The Asian Games kick off next month. Hopefully you've seen the squad list. It's up on the Tavern. Tim posted the bare bones, and then Jinsuk did a nice little expanded post on it with some of the talk on the players. So, Jinsuk, since you're kind of our youth expert, I know you kind of did in the post, but just for our listeners, were you surprised at any of the decisions for the squad list? Any players who should be there that weren't, or that shouldn't be there that are?
Youngjae.
I guess Youngjae is the only real like standout like why like kind of player, but like it's not Lee Kwang-jung without a really stupid inclusion, so I'm not surprised at all. Hakjuo I think was a little interesting. I think there because we have a really good like CM duo already, right? In Lee Jae-sung and Son Juno, I think the Pohang midfielder, right? Like that's what I was expecting, but instead of taking Lee Myung-ju and pushing him up, he pushed Lee Jae-sung up. I mean, I guess that's what he'll do. So I guess that's a bit of a surprise. I did not expect Park Ju-ho. Although I mean, like to me, I felt like Lee Myung-ju was the front runner of the third choice, but I guess it was Park Ju-ho. Anyway, that's about it. Everything else is like as expected.
Yeah, and Lee Kwang-jung said that they did want to call up Lee Myung-ju, but his club wouldn't release him for it. So I think that's maybe why he's not there. Because Lee Myung-ju is 24, I think, so he had to be an overage call-up. Anyway, all right. So the other big thing about the Asian Games was obviously there was a big debate about Son Heung-min and the whole thing about Leverkusen. And in the comments on the Tavern, we've had a little bit of discussion about Leverkusen's decision. Is it the right one to hold on to their asset and not let him go, or should they let him go and maybe get the exemption, the military exemption, if they got the gold, and maybe they could sell him on for a bigger price, or they could hold on to him for longer without having to worry about that, him having to go back. So, Jeremy, I don't think we've heard from you for a while. So, do you have any thoughts? Is not having Son Heung-min going to be a big deal for this team? Do you think they can still win the gold medal without him?
I think it's a big concern. I think he should have been released by his club. I mean, the best young striker that Korea has right now. So I mean, it's kind of a given that he should have been released. He should have been included in the roster. That's all I can say.
Tim, go ahead.
Yeah. Definitely, definitely having him there would have made a big difference. Like he wouldn't be an overage call up because I believe he's still under 23. And he definitely would be the best player at that tournament for sure. But as much as I was angry at Leverkusen for not releasing him, I think after the dust has settled, you kind of understand their rationale behind that. And so I think we have the best team on paper, even without Son Heung-min. We should win the tournament, but tournaments aren't won on paper, and we might lose to the teams like UAE, like we did at the last Asian Games and stuff like that. So I think not having Son Heung-min is a step down, but we still should be able to win the tournament without him, and Son should still have other shots at exemption. So not all is lost. So.
And he still has a chance.
Summed it up just about right. Yeah. He has a lot more chances.
He's got the Olympics,
World Cup, sort of.
Another
Asian Games.
Not the World Cup, but the Olympics.
Yeah.
All right. So,
if I could piggyback that real quick, Leverkusen, their rationale, and if you've read, the report, Leverkusen was saying that they had a couple important fixtures, including some Champions League fixtures, and the result we saw last night with him scoring the game winner against Copenhagen. I guess you can. I even have to backtrack a little bit and say, all right, I guess it's just unfortunate timing that those fixtures are in place, and they are important. So, I think if Leverkusen didn't have, if they just had a few league matches or cup matches, they would have been okay. But the Champions League, it's, they got to get in a little bit for their investment, and it's already paying off. So, I can see Leverkusen's point of view.
Okay. All right, and so let's wrap up the Asian Games talk with the deadly prediction. What place do you think Korea will finish? And we'll start with Tim. Tim, what do you think? How far can Korea go, or will they go at the Asian Games? And to put your
they should win, but we haven't won it in a very long time. So I won't be shocked if they don't win, but they should win on paper. So if I had to give a number, I'd say first, but not.
Okay.
guarantee anything.
Tim says the gold. Roy, what do you think?
Oh, I don't want to jinx it.
Exactly.
Okay. Tim's already done it, so you can work.
Yes.
I'm the pragmatic part of me thinks it's going to be silver, but you know I'm on paper we have a chance to still get gold, but we'll see.
All right. Roy says maybe second. Jinsuk, what do you think?
I think this entirely depends on Lee Jung and his ability to rotate the players and use it properly and organize the defense, which I think is a little shaky. We should get first, but Lee Jung chokes a bit, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this team choke either. So I still say first though, because this is winnable.
Well, okay, you know, I'll say, even though my pragmatic choice would be silver, there still is a good shot for gold, and there is this. I mean, it's basically this is a home match. This is a home tournament. We're on home turf in Incheon, so I think that will give some sort of boost.
All right. Jeremy, you want to make a prediction?
I mean, on paper we should be able to win it, but I feel that we will probably lose the semifinals to some Middle Eastern team, maybe. I mean, like I said, the exclusion of Sung. What?
Go on.
Oh, the exclusion of Son Heung-min. I think that's a somewhat of a heavy blow to the team. So, it's just my prediction. We'll lose in the semifinals.
Well, Son probably is heads and shoulders above everyone else. Like in skill level, not in size.
Great boost to the squad, though, Son Heung-min.
Yeah, but oh well. Like he's not there. We have to duel fight him, and I still expect him to play well. It's too bad. It happens. It happens.
Yeah, I can understand Leverkusen's point of view.
Yes.
Huh?
And to stay positive, Park Ju-ho, interestingly enough, like Jay mentioned earlier, you know, he's being pushed up a little further as a winger. I think would be very interesting. I think he surprised me in terms of you know, the attacking prowess that he potentially has. You know, we've seen it from time to time at Basel, FC Basel, and now with Mainz.
All right. So yeah, Asian Games next month. I think the draw for the group stage is tomorrow on Friday.
No, I actually want to mention it's today. It's at 11 p.m. Eastern. At noon Korea time. That's for the soccer draw.
Right.
It's on YouTube and Naver, so whatever. But it doesn't matter though. We should beat those teams. It's like Malaysia and like
they're all minnows.
Timor and stuff. Like I don't think we lose to East Timor or Malaysia or whatever. So
how far do you think we'll go into the tournament, Jay?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, like everyone said, they should win it on paper, even though there is no Sun and Moon. It's still. I mean, I know people don't always rate the K League, but you know,
we have a ton of talent.
Quite good. Rock is decent at times. EJ Sung is having a very good year at Jeonbuk. So I mean, there's talent there. There's talent there. So I mean, they should win it, but it just seems like, as of late, Korea always finds some way to mess it up right before the end. So
yeah,
the Chicago Cubs of international soccer.
All right. But let's move on. Segment number 3. I think will be a little shorter. Let's take a look very quickly at kind of the domestic picture, the K-League, and the Korean FA Cup. In the K-League right now, if you haven't been watching, Jeonbuk Motors have leapt over Pohang Steelers for first. Jeonbuk leads with 44 points. Pohang has 40. After Jeonbuk beat them 2-0 at the Steelyard last weekend. In the KFA Cup, we're into the semifinals. Last 4 teams, Jeonbuk, Seoul, Seongnam, and Sangju, Sangwoo. So, you think it's fair to say, I don't know how much y'all watch the K-League over there in the U.S., Canada. how much you can. But do you feel at this point, John Book probably maybe favored to do a domestic double over the rest of the league?
Just got a question. Did they announce the draws for this? The pairings for the KFA Cup for the next round?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, I don't know.
I think Poang will make a comeback. I mean, they have to, right? Like, this is just a really, really bad run of form. As soon as they get it clicking again, like, it should be fine.
I like Pohang's manager. Like Jensik was saying, I think they're going through a bad stretch. But look at how they're operating. Beginning the season. I mean, they were just on fire, and I think they could again. I don't understand the stretch. I just saw maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, they lose really badly to was it Suwon 4-1?
Yeah, Suwon. Yeah.
That was a runaway. I couldn't quite understand what was going on. It was just some bad juju, but I think that they
4-1.
Yeah, 4-1.
Yeah, I think that was the
Which
start
team?
of their slide recently. To
Poang.
with that loss, then they were leapfrogged at that point in the table by Jeonbuk. That was the start of it. So it was all very recently that happened. 4 points separating. It's not out of the question that Pohang can then can retake Jeonbuk.
Right. And I would posit that Pohang's slide is partially, or maybe significantly, due to the sale of Lee Myung-ju. From what I've seen from them lately, they're really missing that connection between the defense and the attack, and they become a little bit predictable, I feel. They've gone very kind of wide down the wings and trying to then combine in the final third, but it's not as effective, and I feel like they really miss Lee Myung-ju on this side.
Are they done with the transfer window? Do they have a mid-season transfer window, right?
It's closed. It closed already.
It's closed.
Yeah.
It closed at the end of July, I believe, in Korea.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Anyone else? Tim, Jeremy, I don't know how much you get to see K-League. Any thoughts on Jeonbuk, Pohang, making a run, Jeju?
I think that Jeonbuk could probably take the league. Poang could chase them, but I think, like you mentioned it, and Lee Myung-ju seems to have been a vital player of their organization, so I think there'll be like a transition period. I think Jeonbuk probably should win the league. I don't think any other team can really catch up to them at this point. Like I know there's lots of fixtures left, but still, I mean, being 9 points back or like in third place is still a significant amount. So.
And yeah, this weekend is week 22, so we're about 10 matches away from the split, the top-bottom split in the league, and then the last 6 games, maybe 5 games, are top half and bottom half. Yeah, Jeonbuk is if you don't know, is on a very good run, 12 games, unbeaten. I think they're 10-2-0 in that stretch. And I know people don't rate Choi Kang-hee and they don't like him, but he's been doing very, very well. And
you said that you thought he was managing either differently or better
than before.
Than before, yeah.
Well, I think he's kind of changed what he wants them to do. Jeonbuk is actually, if you've been following the K-League tactics posts I've been doing, Jeonbuk is actually the next post, so you can see in detail what I'm talking about. But basically, he's trying to make them kind of what he calls a Germany-style team with a very aggressive counter-pressing and pressure high at the pitch. And I think they've kind of started to get used to that. And so, yeah, Choi Kang-hee is doing that. And so there are times where you see them still being kind of what we view as Choi Kang-hee, kind of long ball in the back, direct, very aimless. And they're capable of that. But their pressing has gotten a lot better up high. And strange as it may seem, Lee Dong-guk is in very good form right now, too. And that's, I think, a big reason why he's been. His beginning of the season, very poor. All his goals were penalties, but now he seemed to kind of found his groove, and
He's the top scorer now.
Yeah, 10 goals. He's top scorer.
Yeah, the KFA, the K-League defense isn't, like the best.
Yeah, no, they're not. And I mean, I'm not saying like Taeguk's form is like national team worthy, but I think, for John Book, why they're doing well, he's a big part of it. That he's found his form. Anyway, very quickly moving to the bottom of the K-League table. Basically, almost the entire bottom half, 5 teams are potential relegation candidates. Incheon, Busan, Sangju, Gyeongnam, and Seongnam. I think we're all within about 3 points of each other down at the bottom. Gyeongnam's currently bottom. Seongnam is second from bottom. They both have 18 points. Busan is on 19, and Incheon and Sangju, I think, are on 20 or 21, something like that. So they can
Incheon 20, Sangju 21.
Yeah, okay. So they can all be crossed. They're all potential candidates. They all look really bad at times. So, anyone want to make just a random prediction about who will get the automatic drop this year?
Incheon.
Incheon? All right.
Random.
No, Incheon's been in good form recently.
Incheon won. Let's see. Did they win their last?
No, they lost. They lost 5-1 to Seoul.
They lost 5-1.
5-1 to Seoul this weekend. They got smacked, but before that
they won 3 wins. Yeah, 3 wins in a row.
Game over Ulsan, which was very impressive. Anyone?
I'm
right,
gonna guess Gyeongnam. We'll get the drop. Sangju has potential. Their form of late hasn't been that good. 3 losses in their past 5 games. Even though they're technically in 8th place. It's everybody's race to lose. But I will make a prediction that FC Seoul will probably get out of that bottom half bracket.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Seoul.
Oh, my bad. I'm jumping ahead.
So, yeah, since I'm kind of like the K-League person here, I think the current bottom 2, Gyeongnam, Seongnam, are probably favorites. Gyeongnam feels like this team, there's supposed to be a tactics post about them, but they fired their manager last week or a couple weeks ago. Lee Chang-man got fired, or he resigned. So they're kind of going through some change. Seongnam is just a mess right now after they haven't recovered from their sale when they went from being church-owned to city-owned by the city, and they're just a mess. So they could go down. Busan, I pray won't go down, but at times they don't know how to win. I won't go into Busan. Incheon started really poorly, but they have some good young players. I really like Won Sang-yoon a lot, and I think they could just have enough to stay up. Sangju is worried about because I think there's a number of players that will end their service next month in September, including Ikuno, Iho, and some of their core guys that brought them up last year. So there could be another mini transition, so they could fall into it. So basically, I think it'll be a 3-way battle. Sangju, Gyeongnam, Seongnam will be the 3 that kind of do get out in the end. And just very quickly for Tim, K-League Challenge, Daejeon running away with the auto promotion spot. And then a slugfest after that, or the second the playoff spot. Basically, like every other team is in the playoff chase except for like Bucheon. K-League Challenge. We'll talk about it maybe more at the end. All right, and so the last thing I want to talk about domestically are Ulsan and Seoul. Ulsan, minutes away, of course, last year from being champions, but now they're really struggling, and they're closer to dropping down to the bottom 6. And so
it's a management problem.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you all think maybe that Ulsan's dramatic drop in form has been the loss of Kim Ho-gun and the relative inexperience of Jo Min-kook as a manager?
Jo Min-kook has an awful.
I think that's Jin Suk talking. Or was that Tim?
That was Jin Suk.
Oh, Jin Suk. Yeah. Jin Suk stepped away, so I can't see him.
Yeah,
So with that in mind, do you think Ulsan can survive? Kim Shin-wook and Kim Seung-gyu have both been called for the Asian Games,
Yeah.
so they will lose them for a little bit. Do you think they can handle those big losses at both ends of their team and still stay in the top half?
They're not the best.
2.3 or 3 points.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tim. Oh, go ahead.
Who, me?
Yeah, were you talking?
Okay.
Or was it
Okay. Yeah, I was talking. Just.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Whatever. I'll go ahead. I think losing Kim Shin-wook will be a big loss, even if it's just for a couple of weeks. Ulsan aren't in the best form of late, and they've lost their manager. The last thing they need right now is to lose their goal-scoring threat. And I think Seoul is also on a hot streak right now, especially they scored 5 goals against Incheon last weekend. They look really good. So I think Ulsan probably will go down to that 7th place spot and just stay there. Seoul will probably move up, but
Right.
that's what I think.
All right.
That sounds plausible. I'll second that.
All right. Roy, did you have anything you wanted to say on Seoul? I just noted playing better. Is there enough time for them to make the gap? Maybe about 10 games. I know it's a small gap, but
Well, I think enough to not to challenge the title for sure. I think it's too far gone for them. But I think they'll at least make the top half of the table and preserve some sort of dignity to their season, I guess, in some fashion. I think that we're really going to have to really go for it with the. They're still in it with the FA Cup, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think my guess is they're putting all their eggs into that FA Cup basket to be able to qualify for Asia next year. But when I saw them play, it's a strange thing. I know, Jay, you and I had talked about this a while back. Is that they play better in the Asian Champions League than they play domestically for some reason. They played better against Bayer Leverkusen that friendly than they play domestically. I was like really blown away by that. I mean, even though it's a friendly, and perhaps Bayer Leverkusen wasn't playing 100%. I don't think anybody was necessarily playing to lose either. So they were surprising and more fluid than I would suspected. So they somehow have potential. They just have somehow it's just inconsistent. And they're still they're quite a puzzle this year. But that's my prediction for how Seoul is going to do.
Just real quick, I think the next 3 fixtures will be a big test for Seoul. They're playing Jeonbuk, Jeju, and Pohang in their next 3 games. So I think I think that should be a real test for them to see if they can actually move into that top half.
That'll be difficult. Yeah.
And
if you don't get much points about that.
The second,
Go ahead, sorry.
The second leg also of the Asian Champions League knockout is that next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they played Pohang twice in a row, I think.
Yeah, add to that then. Yeah, to the count.
Similar, yeah.
All right. So very quickly, because I know Tim has to go in like 15 minutes or so.
No, I can stay actually.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm fine now.
Anyway, but let's nicely segue into our very quick talk. The AFC Champions League. Technically, it's the quarterfinals, but I consider it more semifinals for each bracket. But last night they had the Korean quarterfinal between Seoul and Pohang. 0-0 draw at the Steel Yard. The other quarter in this side of the table, Guangzhou Evergrande and Western Sydney Wanderers. Western Sydney pulled off a 1-0 win down in Australia with I suppose a little bit, I didn't see it, but a little bit of controversy. I think Guangzhou got 2 red cards.
Fair.
Oh, fair? All right. But I didn't get to watch too much of it because I was out, but anyone get to watch Seoul Pohang that wants to comment briefly on the game? Anyone get to watch it?
No, I slept through.
I set my alarm.
Me too.
And I slept right through it.
Me too.
What I saw some of the post-match stats. In fact, I woke up just as the match was ending, and it looked like Pohang had better possession. I believe they had the advantage in shots, but couldn't break through against FC Seoul.
I read that Seoul played a very defensive game. So.
Okay.
I read that, and Choi Young-soo vowed, like I saw this on the AFC website, that Choi Young-soo, Seoul's manager, vowed to put in a more attacking display next time. But they said that they played very cautious defense today. I didn't see the game though, so.
All right, so we won't talk too much about the AFC Champions League because, well, we can't. But we'll throw out the old cliche. It's a finely poised tie. Second leg, so I think next week. And so Pohang taking want that away goal, probably well poised to go through, but we'll see. All right, so let's move on to our last topic, which is maybe the one that most of our listeners are interested in. That is the European club football season is back.
Yes.
Premier League kicked off last weekend. Germany, the Bundesliga hasn't started yet, but they played a first-round DFB Pokal. Championship is in swing in England, and maybe we can talk a little bit, Jinsuk, about the youth guys, the youth boys in Spain, if there's time.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start in
England.
Okay. We'll start in England. The big new thing was Ki Sung-young, his goal against Manchester United for Swansea.
Yeah.
And so we'll start with our Manchester United fan. Tim, I'm sure you watched that game.
Yes.
What do you think of Key's performance with Swansea against United?
Yeah. I didn't see all of it actually because the stream I was watching was absolutely terrible for obvious reasons since everyone wants to watch it. But I think he played pretty well. I think he will connect well with Sigurdsson, the new guy. And they both scored in that game. And I think that Swansea will have a solid mid-table season. I think they definitely don't look like a relegation threat. And Gary Monk has trust in Ki Sung-young, it seems, their new manager. So I think Swansea will do fairly well this season for their expectations.
All right. And was anyone else surprised that Ki Sung-young started the first game? Because from some of the previews I had read on papers, Europe-based papers, it seemed like they thought Swansea would go with the two that started most last season, and Jonjo Shelvey and Leon Britton, I think. So, given that, I would thought maybe since he was kind of reintegrating himself into the team after being at Sunderland last year and having played at the World Cup, he might not have started. So, but no one else was kind of surprised he started the first game?
I was surprised that you were surprised. I don't know. I know there was the papers had said he maybe would need time to reintegrate, but no, I wasn't surprised at all. But I cut somebody else off.
All right, there was Jinsuk. Jinsuk, did you have anything to say about the book? No. Okay. All right.
I was just saying the couple of websites I read said that he was a lock for that position, so I was under the impression that he would start, but I didn't read much, so I wasn't surprised because what I read said he was going to start. So.
Oh, okay.
This sounds dumb, but I went with my gut instincts that said, look, Gary Monk played directly with Key 2 seasons ago, and the fallout that Key had was with Laudrup, not with Monk. Monk very much favored Key, and we also I think there was some incorrect information that said that Monk had not sought after Key during the midseason, the winter transfer season, when it was like I think a paperwork error on Swansea's part. The fact of the matter was Gary Monk very much did want Key, and obviously it showed, and he has a lot of faith in him, and it paid off definitely.
All right. Did anyone else want to talk about Ki Sung-young, Swansea? No? Right. It was a nice goal. You can see it on YouTube, I'm sure, somewhere. Some fuzzy camera shooting the TV screen kind of thing.
Yeah,
anyway.
And super quick, fabulous about that goal. I won't take up too much time. 29 passes that led to Key finally getting Sigurdsson's pass. Fabulous in that final third. And then Key was supposed to be marked by Juan Mata in Van Gaal's his formation, which was weird. The 3-5-2 4-1-2 formation. It didn't work too well. Juan Mata totally missed the fact that Key then snuck up to the area and then was able to then slam it. Well, very much get a really good shot to the post. This is fantastic teamwork.
United didn't play well. They didn't know the system. They played better in the second half, where they changed to a more conventional system. So.
Were you guys surprised that he scored the goal, the first goal of the Premier League?
I hate to admit, I was.
I was shocked. I was happy.
It was beautiful.
It was a great strike. It was a great strike. It was a wonderful moment. After a horrible summer, it was a wonderful moment. Okay, anyways.
But quickly, what Jeremy was saying, the surprise, I think, was that, Key didn't score when he was at Swansea at all. He was so deep. He played a little further up, more advanced in Sunderland. And obviously that resulted in a couple of goals. Could have resulted in a few more, as a matter of fact. But everything I read, I actually was surprised because I thought Key was going to play very, very deep. But he was a little adventurous and it was awesome that he did.
I was surprised at Shelby's defensive contribution. Actually, that was surprising me.
Okay. You thought that Shelby would play more up, a little more advanced?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should
switch things up.
All right. Well, let's move on. Yoon Suk Young is the only other Premier League guy, but he's not featuring at all or in the picture for QPR, so we won't talk about him. So let's drop down into the championship. Lee Chung-young has started, I think, all the games for Bolton so far.
Yeah.
But Bolton, I think, has lost all of them or drawn or something. So Bolton doesn't look like they're going to get promoted this year.
Nope.
And so I'm wondering what you think. I know we talk about this a lot, but his future at Bolton, his contract, I think, ends this summer in 2015. But it seems like there was an article recently.
Yeah.
Someone tweeted it that they felt like they might be able to renew him, that he would be open to renewing Bolton.
I think I read
manager talk, or if that's actually truth. Do you think?
Well, I read somewhere that, well, if I can just go ahead really quickly, I read somewhere that Nugget Friedman was under the impression that Lee Chung-young wanted to stay, and he said that Lee Chung-young has never shown that he wants to leave, and that they're only going to take the right offer for him, or something along those lines. Like, they want a good price for him, and they're hoping to re-sign him again. So, from what I've heard, Lee Chung-young sounds like he wants to stay at Bolton because he's a very loyal player. Yeah.
I don't think anyone's gotten to watch Bolton because the championship games just don't get shown.
Yeah.
But anyone want to comment on Lee Chung-young's situation? I know it's been talked to death on the Tavern and in previous pods and hangouts, but
according to what I can figure out from the tweets, he's playing well. I cut somebody else off, so I want to give them a.
No, it was me. I was going to ask another question, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's been difficult to see championship games, of course. But I've been following, a couple of different independent Twitter sites associated with Bolton, and it seemed like, it's the same as before, that he can't finish well. He gets his chances, and he skies his shots over. Aside from that, if you can look beyond that, he's playing very well. He's playing creatively. In one-on-one situations, he's doing really well. I'm hoping that he realizes the situation that Bolton's going to be in, mired, possibly relegated. That maybe he's got a few days in which he can talk to his agent and get a move. But we'll see.
I don't think he'll move this window. Unless Bolton's showing signs of as a relegation prospect, I don't think Lee Chung-young is going to say, "Hey, I want to move." I don't know. Lee Chung-young kind of strikes me as that player who's happy at where he's at, and Bolton have no intention of really selling him unless there's a good price for him. So, oddly enough, it's a pretty stable club situation for Chung-Young, although it's not the best club for him.
Right.
That's what I think.
And to wrap up our Lee Chung-Young talk, I have one last question, just a yes or no question. I know you're going to want to expand on your yes or no, but I'll restrict you to not. Okay. If Lee Chung-Young continues at Bolton, he renews his contract beyond this year, do you think that potentially, or in theory, ends his club career? Like, Bolton will be it. There's no step up to a Premier League team or another big team in Europe. Do you think, if he renews, do you think that's kind of it for him?
Yeah, unless Bolton gets promoted, but
right.
That probably won't happen in like 10 years.
Tensuck says yes. Roy?
Yes.
Yes. Tim?
Probably, yeah.
Probably, yeah. Jeremy?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he just strikes me as that player that has so much potential. It's frustrating to watch. I'm just gonna say no. I think he still has a chance.
His chance. So.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the thing is that at his age, he's what, 25 now?
Yeah. 26.
Yeah.
26. So I mean, he's in theory entering his prime years. So if he stays, I don't know. Anyway,
but I think until we find our next Korean national team manager, I mean until that day. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have nothing to say. Whatever.
All right. Moving on very quickly because there's not really much to say about him. Kim Bo-kyung at Cardiff. I don't think he's played any of the league games. I think he did play in the the Capital One
Capital
Cup.
One Cup, yeah.
And then I think he's injured now. I think I read. Yeah. So, but even if he's not injured, he doesn't really seem to be in Solskjaer's plans at Cardiff, but not at least as a starter. Do you feel? I'm starting to get this feel that this could be almost a career ender for him. The way things are going at Cardiff is that any move he makes now is going to be lateral, like championship, lower level, or down.
Well, I read reports that he was linked to Celtic, but then this morning.
Just turned that down. He just turned that down.
Yeah, exactly. And then he turned that down. And I thought, why? Cardiff doesn't.
Why?
Solskjaer doesn't value him anymore. And there's a new manager at Celtic who wants to take a chance on him. Go there. I think it's a mistake on his part. It's a real big mistake.
I'm not even surprised because so many Korean players over the past 5-6 years have made the most retarded career decisions that I'm not even surprised anymore that this kind of crap happens. So, whatever.
What I meant to say earlier is, I mean, I feel like when we have a new manager, there'll be some kind of guidance for these players. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I think in the way that let's say Jurgen Klopp has advised some players on certain moves. He definitely has given direct advice on certain moves. That's for sure.
Wasn't Chung Sung-ryung linked to QPR and a couple of other clubs?
Yeah. I read that rumor and I kind of went, this isn't even worth mentioning. Just go on YouTube and look up Chung Sung-ryung and go on YouTube and you see all his bloopers. Nope, they're not even worth it. I really don't think that's a smart decision for any club. I'm pretty sure Chung's going to stay where he's at and do what Chung does. So I don't know. I don't like him, so I'm not very nice. But
hopefully our new national team manager will bring the best out of these players and give direction and advice. That's what I'm hoping for. Now I can't really have a say. I mean, I don't think Lee Chung-Young will. I don't think his career will end at Bolton. Just hoping that something better.
It depends how long he resigns for.
I will venture to say, one, Cardiff is looking. Obviously, you can't take too much from one result. They obviously beat their team last week 3-1, but I they're looking pretty sharp in the championship. They could be one of those parachute teams that'll just go right back up, and then who knows what they'll do in struggling in the Premier League. Kimbo Kyung has in the past 2 years at Cardiff has been one of those players that won't feature all the time, but then when they think that he's on form, he'll be a consistent player, and not only a consistent player, he would be an essential contributing player. That happened in his first year when they were in the championship. Of course, we're looking at a different manager, Malcolm Mackay, but who was it that one of his former teammates that moved to a different team, Jordan Much had said, why isn't Kimbo playing? He should be playing. And then, of course, we realized probably he wasn't playing because he was injured. So maybe that has more to do with it. So we'll wait and see.
Right.
I'm of the mind I think that Cardiff will play him later and play him more consistently later.
I have to head out right now, so I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for
All right.
All right. We're running late as always.
Yeah.
See you, Jeremy.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on Kimbo Kyung and his situation at Cardiff as the season progresses, and hopefully he bounces back from this injury quickly. But let's move over to Germany, where the picture is a little rosier. I don't know if we really have to say much about Son Heung-min because we already kind of talked about him with relation to the Asian Games and the national team. So
he's just playing well. So
yeah, he's doing well so far with Roger Schmidt's new system. He scored twice, DFB Pokal, and then in the Champions League qualifier. So
good goals.
The situation looks very good for now. Over at Mainz, Kujachol, Kujachol's. I don't really know what to make of Kujachol anymore. He seems so inconsistent. It seems like he's injured a lot now. But he scored in their DFB Pokal match as well. So I'm wondering.
He scored, I think, once in the Europa League, which they got knocked out, and then he scored another one, in the cup match, which then they got knocked out.
But he scored his penalty too.
That's right. And Park Ji-ho
did, and they still lost. So.
All right. Well, anyway, Kujachol, I don't really know what to make of him anymore. So I mean, this is a really broad question, but what are you watching for Kujachol this year? Are you looking just for consistency or goals or an improvement in his build-up midfield hold-up skills? What are you looking for from Kujachol this year?
All of the above.
All the above.
I think he can.
Overall.
Yeah, and the number of assists and goals I think is going to go up if given what we're seeing right now. The season hasn't started. Of course, it's going to start in a few days this weekend. But from the reports that I saw, it's looking like he's been really good, which is in stark contrast to what the second half of last season was from when he first joined Mainz. It was very inconsistent at Mainz. A bit out of form and recovering from an injury that was nagging. If he can stay healthy, I think that would be then maybe more of a key indicator to how consistent and what he can do to improve in all these categories.
I agree with Roy. Just staying consistent and staying healthy and playing well generally would be a success for him because he's had a lot of those up and down, I'm hurt, I'm not hurt anymore, I'm scoring, I'm not scoring kind of seasons. So if he just plays consistently, gets minutes, playing games, starts, and does if he has a solid job, I'll be happy. I'm not expecting too much from him. Just stay consistent, basically.
Okay. Jinsuk, any thoughts about Kujachol?
Yeah, what Tim said.
All right. Jinsuk says what Tim says. Tim says what Roy says. All right. The other one at Mainz, Park Ji-ho. Any thoughts on Park Ji-ho this year at Mainz?
I'm glad Mainz released him for the Asia Games. I know they're backtracking a little bit, but that I think they recognize that they want to hold on to him. He played a ton. I mean, he started most of their matches last year and was pretty integral. So to their success. So hopefully this is a gamble that'll pay off well for Mines.
I agree with Roy again, basically.
And Suck, you agree with Roy?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
No, he agrees with me. Who agrees with Roy?
All right. Everyone agrees.
Okay.
All right.
Same thing.
Last thing for Park Ji-ho, yes or no again. Does he have a national team future if he does well at Mines again?
Yes.
Or is he done?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
I hope
Roy?
so. Depends on the new manager, but I hope he's valued more than the Hungbo reign. So.
I've always been in the corner of Hong Mong-bo, but I'll agree that I think somehow he had something in it for Park Ji-ho. I don't know exactly what it was. New manager, that it should all change on paper,
Yeah.
Next one, again, we'll treat it probably a little short because there's not much to go on. Kim Jin-soo at Hoffenheim. He's played their DFB Pokal match where they played some small team. They beat them like 9-0 or something, 8-0.
Yeah.
So, just very quickly, any thoughts, expectations on Kim Jin-soo's first year in Europe that you want to see from him?
Consistent starter. That's all.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Playing a lot. I think that's important. I mean, first of all, he's in a good league, the Bundesliga. He's in a very good league, but it's important that he plays actual minutes. So playing in a good league is much better than playing in a lower league. But I don't want to see him play. That's kind of obvious. I just want to see him get stuck on the bench.
All right.
I think he should. I think he'll have a good season.
All right.
I'm just excited he's in the Bundesliga. The more Koreans go into the Bundesliga, this is a great trend.
The better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And they were pretty decent mid-table finish to last season. So he hasn't joined a bad club. Augsburg always seems to struggle, except for last season for whatever reason. But a lot of the Koreans in the last couple of years until recently had joined teams like Augsburg or Hamburg. It used to, always in relegation trouble. This is kind of different to see. Son at Bayer Leverkusen, Mainz and Hoffenheim, Augsburg. These are all, between mid-table to Champions League qualifying, Europa qualifying. This is a good trend. We're still, as a numbers game, Japan is sending over more. That's my concern. They're still sending, in numbers, more transfers coming over to Europe, particularly Germany. I think there was a couple of German teams, maybe Basel had picked up another one. I mean, I'm hearing a couple of different names. So, that's my repeated my record player that keeps spinning. But I'll leave it at that.
We'll save the Korea versus Japan talk for because I think we'll
go beat them.
We're
gonna beat them.
All right.
We're gonna beat them.
Just to mention, just to mention him for the sake of completeness, Hong Jung-ho still at Augsburg, but he's injured still, I think, so he has not featured at all for them. Ji Dong-won at Dortmund.
Injured.
He's injured now. I think they said 4 weeks out.
Yep.
But do we think Ji Dong-won is going to see much time at Dortmund this year? Based on their season, it doesn't seem like he's going to be. He's really he's certainly not a starter, but he doesn't really seem to be one of those like first three off the bench, the usual sub. So I'm just wondering, again, I guess, kind of expectations for Ji Dong-won at Dortmund.
I know there was, if I can say this real quick, and I don't want to cut. Maybe I'll let Tim say something. Or
No. Oh, you go ahead.
Okay. I know we had a comment as soon as G had started a few of the preseason matches, and then when the cup matches started coming about, we were expecting that G would be playing in those and didn't. A couple of people got really upset, on the Tavern, and I can only say we should caution for patience here. He's still young. I think he's going to be a project for Jurgen Klopp to have someone of G's raw talent and produce a quality world-class striker out of him. Borussia Dortmund is a world-class team that is always in the mix with the Champions League and is up there in the Bundesliga. So he's joined a quality team. He's got fantastic facilities and fantastic coaches to improve. And I think really Jurgen Klopp is looking at G in the long term. You look at the contract; it's a 4 or 5 year contract. So there's some confidence here that the coaches have. We just have to be patient. He's not going to appear automatically. He's going to be a project for the long term, and how long that will be, I just don't know. So this season, I think we're going to see some limited, and then the following season, I think is going to be a little more of a critical benchmark.
All right, fair enough.
That makes sense. I think he was signed as a project more as a right away starter, but I do worry about playing time and him getting a little bit rusty and stuff. So we'll see.
All right. And then, Jinsook, anything you want to add?
As a G, yeah. I still expect him to make at least 10, 15 apps. So I think that's a good, reasonable.
Okay.
Maybe a couple goals.
Okay.
Yeah,
we should pray a little bit.
Because of I'll tell real quickly. Borussia Dortmund, of course, has got the challenge of the Asian, rather the Champions League on top of the cup. So like all the other teams in Europe in those various leagues. So depending upon the different injury, Borussia Dortmund had a ton of injuries last year. So Jurgen Klopp was pulling his hair out trying to manage with the rash of injuries that they've had. So given the opportunities of time, I think G is going to have some fair share of appearances to help the team out for the long stretch.
All right. And our last, I think, KPA in Germany would be Ruseng Wu, who is on loan now at Eintracht Braunschweig, down in the 2 Bundesliga.
He's on a loan.
Yeah. I guess we'll keep it short, but what do you think about Ruseng Wu and his future? Or do you think is this a good move for him to drop down to the 2 Bundesliga for more playing time? Yeah.
I'll second Jinsook.
Youngsters always need more playing time. That's how they develop. And I think Rio has potential. He just needs to express some more because we haven't seen much of it.
And Braunschweig is, I think, they're one of the better teams in the 2 Bundesliga. So.
Well, they were
Yeah, did they get relegated? Is that right?
Yeah, they got relegated last year.
Yeah.
So bottom team.
It's not like he's going to a bad team either. He's going to a decent team for that skill level. So hopefully he does well.
They have a relationship, Bayer Leverkusen and Braunschweig. They just had a player on loan last season who they brought back up. The guy that scored the second goal, I forget his name, yesterday. He scored the second goal. Yeah, Belarabi.
Okay.
He was on loan for them most of last season, and then came back, and they think he's a better player now. And I think he is a better player. And
he is.
I think maybe that's what's going to happen to Ruseng Wu. And from what I understand, Takuchi, one of the new Tavern contributors, had written this in the forum that he featured it already in one game. As soon as he joined, he just started. He played a game and it was contributing to a buildup of a goal. We may even register an assist for them.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right, and then last topic. We'll go to Jinsook because these are you. Jinsook, is there any new news for the Spanish youngsters, the Barca kids, or Valencia?
Other than the stuff that I posted on the Tavern, not really. There's actually there should be a Barcelona game soon. Today or tomorrow. We'll see if Lee starts that one. But I also did want to mention what?
Oh no, you go ahead. I have a question after.
Yeah, what I was just gonna say is that in all the tournament matches I've watched, Lee has been extremely isolated up, and he has had like no touches. I don't know if this is like temporary or like I don't know what's going on. I might talk to some people on Twitter about it maybe.
What's the transfer ban situation?
There was a new update today, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was an update today. They rejected it again.
Okay. So
nothing happened.
So how does that hurt Isangu, if at all?
He can't play this whole season.
Yeah. Okay. That kind of That's just a question.
All right.
So there's another round of appeal, I believe, to that, and so we'll just have to wait to see.
They say they'll appeal, but like it takes years. So.
So he's in limbo.
Yeah.
It
but
doesn't.
Will play when he turns 18.
Yeah. Can they go to the CAS? The
Court arbitration.
Yeah. Whatever, it doesn't matter. CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Anyways.
Unfortunately, it does seem like it's a pretty black and white issue with them. Is that they did run foul of FIFA's rules, regardless of what you think of them, or all the other clubs do it too. Is probably not the best defense, but it does seem like it's an unfortunate situation that they're in, and hopefully some sort of deal can be resolved where they can at least start playing. But we'll see. I think that's just about going to wrap up our hangout. But Tim, just wanted to ask you very quickly the update on the U20 Women's World Cup that's going on there in Canada.
Yes, the semifinals are just finishing up. South Korea was knocked out in the quarterfinals. They lost to France on penalties. They got to the group stage, only just. But they had 3 missed penalties in that match against France, 1 in regulation time, and 2 in penalty kicks. And they were outmatched. They were outmatched. France definitely deserved to go through on merit, and Korea played a much more defensive game. But if France had converted the chances better, they would have easily gotten through. As for North Korea, I know this is a South Korean soccer blog, but it's Korea. But North Korea just played their semifinal, and they lost to Nigeria 6-2.
Oh,
right
goodness.
After having beaten the USA on penalties.
Yeah.
Which is probably a very important game for them, for one reason or another. But yeah, so I'm just insinuating here. So yeah, it looks like it'll be Nigeria versus either Germany or France in the finals, which will be in Montreal. So I think all in all, it was a good performance from the U20 women for South Korea and for North Korea. It
was a good experience for them, having gone this far. And it's too bad that one penalty kick in regulation time would have done it, and they would have advanced. But
probably, yeah.
And so the next summer, this is all like sort of preparation for the World Cup.
Sort of. It's like the Confederation Cup World Cup package. It's kind of the equivalent for the women. That Canada gets a chance to test its facilities with the U20 World Cup, and then they actually get the real thing next summer. Yeah. So Korea will be in that. They're qualified easily, so hopefully they get drawn into a good group. Maybe playing near here, so I can go watch them. But who knows?
All right. And I'll just say, they broadcast the quarterfinal against France here in Korea when it was live, so I actually got to see it. And yeah, France certainly outmatched them. They were much bigger. It seemed like all the French players were bigger than the biggest Korean player, so they could basically just pull Korea around. Korea played very defensive. They missed the penalty. France, probably a little unfortunate, right at the end of extra time, they had a goal disallowed for offside.
Right.
Probably
that
wrong.
That wasn't really offside, yeah.
Looked like, she was onside when the ball was played, but yeah, the penalty...
And the penalty might have crossed the line, can't tell. So.
Yeah, they couldn't see. The camera was very bad.
It was terrible, yeah.
But it was a little unfortunate. Korea maybe should have gone through if they converted that penalty in the second half, but France on the balance of play was certainly the better team.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too bad they didn't have goal line technology.
Yeah, I don't think they used it there. But
no, they didn't install it.
Yeah. But it's again, it kind of, I know it's a women's game, but it reflects something we talked about post World Cup, and that is the physical disadvantage that Korean players sometimes have against European and African teams is that they're just smaller sometimes. And
We could have
that,
used a Parkinson's Hunter or two in there.
yeah,
A more physical player. So
yeah. All right. But I think that just about wraps up this Google Hangout. So let's call Mr. Lee. Anything you'd like to say to wrap up our Hangout?
I guess just I mean, there's a new season getting underway, so hopefully the KPAs can do well in England and in Germany. So I know a lot of us are kind of like still really disappointed and I guess pissed off at what happened at the World Cup, but it's a new cycle, so it's a new beginning. So I'm remaining cautiously optimistic for the future. And if the Asian Games are ahead, that's the first big tournament of the cycle, even though it is U23. So there's lots ahead. So
All right.
stick around.
Mr. Young, anything you'd like to add? Last calls, last thoughts?
I hope Youngster's doing his job as well as he did last time.
Yes.
And I hope Lee Guangzhou learned from his past errors.
Right.
And actually does not choke at the semifinals for like the first time in like 4-5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm joking. All right.
Guangzhou was horrible. That Asian game. Anyways.
All right. And Mr. Kim, anything last calls, last words you'd like to say?
Yeah. Second what Tim said. Second what Jinsuk said. And I'm just psyched about Sun and Key scoring already at this point. And I think hopefully, cross my fingers, this is a foreshadowing of good things to come. And it'll allow other European managers to see, all right, Korea's got good quality. Maybe they can do some scouting more at the K League. That would be a really nice result of all that. So I'm crossing my fingers and looking forward, of course, to the Asia Games and Asia Cup coming up in the next couple of months. So.
Right. And Roy, I wanted to ask you this before we came on air, but we didn't. But we had a little issue about financing the Tavern.
Oh yeah.
And you said I think 3 people volunteered to pay the whole cost. So
yeah,
I think
fantastic.
you said they gave permission to acknowledge them. So if you'd like to give them maybe a little shout out.
We're still working that out, believe it or not, because last week, not to get into too much detail, but I was traveling to my in-laws and in Denver, and while I love my in-laws, they didn't have Wi-Fi, so I didn't have too much communication with them. But on paper, they agreed to finance the entire cost of the Tavern. So in a post coming, if they're so willing, I want to publicly acknowledge them. So I'm incredibly honored and humbled that they would want to help continue this project. So yeah, it's fantastic, and this is coinciding with the 3rd anniversary of the Tavern being in operation. So to be forthcoming, probably within the week, I want to say.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so good news on the money front. We get some kind benefactors who will help continue this project.
Hang on.
Sorry, Tim's doing something. All right, but anyway.
Sorry.
Hopefully, do exciting things. Roy alluded to it. There is a new contributor on the Tavern, Taeguchi, who has lots of good information on the Korean players in Europe, especially Germany, it seems like. So he will be providing updates every now and then. Maybe one day we can rope him into doing one of these hangouts with us, and we can get the scoop straight from his mouth.
If I may add to that, what's really cool about that is there's even more Koreans than I even suspected that are in the Bundesliga 2.0 and in other youth academy programs. Too many to list. I think Takuchi has a far larger list of that, and I'm really encouraged to see that. Sun Hyung Min, if we all remember, went over to Hamburg in their academy system as a 16-year-old. Failed initially, went back to Korea, and then was given a second chance. So the next Sun Hyung Min could come from any one of these players. Not to mention the La Masia players. So it's a really bright future when you think about it. I'm not to put too much, pressure, too much burden on these young shoulders, but the potential there is exciting to see. I love seeing these little kids play, and we'll cross our fingers to see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I think that'll just about do it for us today. I think we're almost at 2 hours for this one.
Oh yeah.
Probably call it what people go back to their real lives. Don't forget, of course, friendlies next month, September 5th, Venezuela, September 8th, Uruguay. Both kick off 8 p.m. Korean time, so I guess that would be what, 7 a.m. during daylight.
Yeah.
So you can hopefully find a stream. It will certainly broadcast in Korea on one of the big three, NBC, SBS, or KBS2. So it should be available somewhere if you have certain technologies installed on your computer.
Yes.
One for that now. But keep an eye out for that. And as always, there will be updates weekly on our players abroad, on the K-League, tactic stuff, analysis, and other wonderful, insightful goodies on the Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors.
Have fun in the Uruguay game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hopefully I can. I got my ticket there, but I do not have a way back yet. So I have to, midnight after, I have to figure out how I'm going to get back from Seoul.
Sleep in the park.
I'll either hopefully get a bus or I will sleep in the bus station and right back that night.
Fun.
It's not a good idea.
I can find a love motel or something. Alright. Well, on that note, we'll end our hangout. See you next time, probably after the friendlies. And thanks for watching to this edition of the Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors Google Hangout.
Ciao, Gallo.